Thank you and good evening. This is the last session. Please hold on. So I come from an applied mathematics institute, so it's easier for me to present case studies. We will have 3 case studies that illustrate the 3 emergencies that were discussed today. So climate change, accessibility to technology, and shared resources. So I would like to invite the 3 speakers. Laura. So Laura Turley, she's UNESCO chair on hydropolitics at the Geneva Water Hub at the University of Geneva. Then for the case study on equitable development and use of new technology, there will be Mattia Yermol, is from... from the International Research Center on Artificial Intelligence at the University of Ljubljana. And then for the last case study on science diplomacy on shared natural resources, Jovan Despotovic from the University of Belgrade. So Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you to those of you still hanging on here. I will try to keep to my time. So the Geneva Water Hub is a center of competence on water for peace. We're located at the University of Geneva, and as was mentioned, we also hold the UNESCO chair on hydropolitics. And so what's I think maybe the most important thing to say about the Geneva Water Hub today is that we consider ourselves a boundary organization. So we literally, we're at the University of Geneva, we all have University of Geneva staff contracts, but we operate very much in this sort of Genève International, interacting all the time with UN agencies. We have an office also in the WMO, where we lead discussions every twice a year with permanent missions to the United Nations on topics of relevance. So we really are straddling this space, and it has loads of interesting opportunities. For example, we do find that there's sort of an inherent trust that comes with being a university center, and sort of gives us a bit of convening power. However, on the other hand, it also can be very restrictive at a university because especially for things like career trajectories, it can be quite hard because we have some people with academic profiles, but if you don't have an academic profile, it's hard to continue to advance your career. So there's also very practical challenges for boundary organizations and for science diplomacy. And I just want to bring that side to the discussion too. But really what's most interesting and important is that we feel we're accountable to different communities, accountable to scientific communities and all of that, what that means in terms of rigor and peer review, but we're also accountable to making sure to the policy communities. And I just wanted to say two quick disclaimers as I go. First of all, I wasn't on the original agenda, so you might be slightly confused, but here I am. And second of all, as you hear me speaking, you might wonder where I'm from, and I just would like to say it's a Canadian accent. I just thought I might mention that. So without further ado, I just wanted to mention, I could have talked about several different projects. Needless to say, we're engaged in many research and applied projects. But one which has just been landed with the Swiss National Science Foundation, they have a tool called the Multilateral Academic Projects, which was a moment for Swiss universities to work with Southeastern Eastern Europe. And I think this itself is an example of science diplomacy, right? Because often from the research side, you're scanning through calls, where can we get some funding? And one of the first things you're sort of thinking is, okay, well, what countries do we need to work with for this call? Or what topics do we need to work with? So this is the way in which the entire funding environment and sort of political environment informs the research that actually even gets undertaken. So just a note there that we looked then for partners, and we found a very nice partnership with the Ludovica University of Public Service, where our previous moderator is based, as well as the University of Osijek in Croatia. And we're doing a project together called Transboundary Water Cooperation in Europe, Governance, Resilience, Climate Stress, and Hydropolitical Risks. It's interdisciplinary, mostly based in legal analysis and legal sciences, but we're also political scientists, environmental scientists, and hydrologists from mostly from the Croatian university. And the project is literally just starting, so I don't have any results to share with you. I just thought we'd make some comments. So we've talked a lot about water cooperation today, and of course in the last session mostly. Maybe some very broad comments are just to say that actually Europe exemplifies water cooperation. And so I think that's the entry point for our project, is saying that a long and illustrious history of cooperation can be noted even from the Treaty of Westphalia and the formation of states in Europe. Then, of course, in the 19th century, we have some of the world's first river basin organizations, notably the Ebro being the very first in 1926 in Spain. But even before that, in 1815, the Congress of Vienna set in place the rules for navigation. And shortly afterwards, like I mentioned, we had some of the world's first river basin coordination commissions, such as the Ebro, but also the Rhine and the Danube, which we heard about. So the context is indeed this history of cooperation. That being said, of course, climate change is posing very serious challenges because the glacier retreat reduces that sort of constant flow. At the same time, extremes in precipitation leading to flooding and drought. And there's this relationship between quantity and quality. So in Geneva, for example, we often talk about Lac Léman, where there's concerns that without the dilution of the same water quantities, obviously pollution is becoming more and more of a concern again in the lake, which it hadn't been for many decades. It was kind of dealt with, but it's coming back to the table as a concern. And so from geopolitical perspective, of course, there are challenges to be dealt with as well, notably insecurity, security issues and deterioration in the East with the war in Ukraine. And if we think about the Western Balkans, we've recently been asked to kind of revisit this question of integrated water resource management in Kosovo, for example, with Serbia. So there is ongoing fragilities and conflict potential. So this is this general context of our project. And some of you may already be aware, but about 6 weeks ago, the Rhone River finally was given an agreement between France and Switzerland. It was one of the few rivers that had no agreement and had no commission. It still has no commission, but there's an agreement now that deals with mostly extremes in water availability. So this is a first, and it sort of speaks to the point of climate change posing new challenges to issues that were was kind of not a concern beforehand. And this agreement in particular, you may recall in 2022, there was a pretty significant drought in much of Europe. And there was insignificant water coming downstream from Switzerland into neighboring France to cool the nuclear reactors. And they had to turn off some of the nuclear power plants. And these sorts of events are leading to the need for new diplomatic tools and approaches. So the specific topic of this project will be on EU and non-EU water relations. We're going to be looking at this in light of climate change, of course, and in the context of a long history of cooperation in Europe. We know that the EU Water Framework Directive is also meeting its 25-year anniversary as well, like the World Water Assessment Program. And we know that this framework directive was developed in a time where climate change wasn't as high on the political agenda. And also there's a very explicit focus on quality with the ecological status objectives and not so much on quantity. So, and also, of course, all of the governance systems that this brought for water. So when it comes to how EU states or collaborate with non-EU states, essentially member states are meant to coordinate with non-EU states to pursue the directives in the entire basin. And so this means that they're required to do a best endeavor type obligation with non-EU countries. So in the rivers that we're studying, this is mostly Switzerland. In the case of the Rhone, the Rhine, the Danube, and the Po. And in the Danube, there's, of course, as we've heard, 14 countries and an almost even split between EU and non-EU countries. And so we're going to be studying these four, the history of cooperation between EU and non-EU countries in these four basins through our study. So yeah, quite a bit of information on this slide, but the idea is that there's little systematic study of this relationship. Some of the objectives are to map interactions in climate-sensitive rivers, or maybe we'll focus on some of the tributaries and the subbasins instead of the entire basins, which will be more accessible or more practical. So with the colleagues working on hydrology, we'll be assessing different climate scenarios, climate-driven conflict risks, developing resilience models and policy recommendations. So you see there some of the methodology we'll be using. And in terms of deliverables, we're looking at developing different profiles, different databases. And also we're leaning towards this resilience model. What can Europe share essentially with the rest of the world? Because there is this long history and there are multiple governance layers. So what is there to be learned here if that can be shared elsewhere? So finally, just in terms of science diplomacy contributions, this project is about building a shared evidence base, working, of course, with Switzerland, Hungary, and Croatia in this case, supporting negotiations. We're always using our positioning in international Geneva to influence meetings that the UNECE, for example, the UNECE Water Convention hosts, amongst others, UN Water, the WMO. We're quite active in getting our word in. And advocacy, I suppose is what it's called properly. Then aligning EU and non-EU frameworks will be hopefully part of the results of our study, and developing climate cooperation tools that will be useful in Europe, but also beyond. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will pass the floor back to the moderator.
Thank you very much also for being perfectly on time. So now it's Mitya Yermol for a case study on science diplomacy for equitable development and use of new technologies. Please.
So I will try to get online for that. So we are IRCAI, this is International Research Center on Artificial Intelligence under auspices of UNESCO, based in Josef Stefan Institute in Ljubljana. And so we do quite a lot of things on AI, since we were the first institute as well under auspices of UNESCO in the domain. That would span from the policy support for the governments down to concrete support for SMEs, for new projects. We put them on the stage. There is a program that is open call always. And then, of course, to the open infrastructures and open source software. So one of the things that certainly is very much related to science diplomacy or diplomacy as such is the evidence-based decision support. We heard that already. So we started with these global observatories already in 2013. Then we actually developed the first observatory for media, which would count roughly around reading automatically, probably around 1 million of articles per day in all languages. And then, of course, when we detect out from the reports the event, we put the event in the storyline, and then we have now the complete history of the world from 2013 till now. And one of the consequences, because we have all this history now and tools that do quite a good prediction, we are able to search the future. So that would be there is an event happening, and we are looking for the potential consequences and who will gain and who will lose. And that goes now pretty well into the direction of global politics as well. So the last presentation we had of this tool was in the Security Council, which actually they're not using that kind of tool. So we are presenting this something that would be an open, accessible thing. And so those are the things that we are developing. And now we are trying to put everything in one offer to the globe. That would be a kind of a set of these global observatories of SDGs, openly for everyone, providing all these features from real-time monitoring, so multimodal data, real-time monitoring, prediction, analytics, and of course also simulation. So I will just show you the glimpse of this. because it's work in progress. Sorry. Sorry. I wanted to show this as well.
That's
link to, okay, sorry. The G.
when we need technology, technology doesn't help us.
Yeah, well, come on.
It happened already today, so no worry.
Close your eyes. Yeah, I know you can see. I know. Oh, sorry. So I will go into that later on. So we started as well with the. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just So we started already. One of the observatories that we made was about the AI. So and you can have now an idea what would that look like. So this is, of course, it was not UNESCO because UNESCO was too late when we were actually pitching this idea of building the OECD, building the AI observatory. So observatory about AI. And here, of course, you can see what we do. So on the top, there are different, so you see AI research, AI demography. So for each of these analytics, we are using different types of global data sources. That would mean everything that you see here is mostly close to real time. For example, we collect all the research papers, we collect all the patents, we collect all the investments of companies into SMEs on AI projects. We collect 300,000 job posts every day just to understand what's going on in this sphere of future of the jobs. We are trying to create and calculate automatically competencies and stuff. And that can be done for each country. So you can look at your country, where it stands, what's going on, who are the entities, who are the people you have to contact, what is going on the open source development, because we have the GitHub completely scanned out. So those are the things that we can do because we have technology which is an open source. So whatever we develop is an engine, and this engine is available for anyone to use. Or on the other end, these SDG observatories that we are developing are there for any data source that you might think would be relevant for us to ingest. Is open. So what I'm showing you this is because this is one of the line of the activities which are very important in the sense when you're talking about collaboration between different countries. We are involved in thousands and thousands of different types of projects all the time. There are calls, international projects, international collaborations. But at the end of the day, how this project work looks like is that when the funding ends, everything ends. And more or less, whatever you look, in whatever type of funding you're looking at, either national or international, like for example, EU, it's like more or less completely self-contained environment of people just proposing projects, writing proposals, and not really making results out of those. So this is complete situation that we see now also with the analytics. So this is one part which I think is very important. The other part which is very important, and I want to show you again as well, is the this program. Org. Yeah, I'm not very good at the education for a better open education for a better world. So we've discussed about these issues today, funding. So whatever we can talk freely about, you know, cross-border collaboration, and we have every day or every week, no, every week we have a delegation from any country around the world coming and trying to talk to us, and that will be ministries sitting on both ends. And then at the end of the day, they are saying, well, we are, you know, we are keen, we want to work together, we want to do something of it. And then afterwards, everything stops. And in most cases, it's because there is no commitment on the other end, which would be commitment of funds, commitment of collaboration that would actually be then materialized in the projects. So what we did here is essentially, we started years ago a kind of a mentoring program. The idea was, is there a model that if there is a good story, people will engage and work on projects? So we started this with this kind of a program, which is about creating open education resources. So creating an open course or set of courses or complete curricula that should be used globally. So should be open, should be used globally, should be shareable and stuff. And we started like just today we have the 8th round finished. So this is yearly program. We started in 2017, and we started with a kind of a friendly open call. So we just called people around the world and said, would you be willing to? And we were having 17 projects in the first year. Now we are actually running roughly around 100 to 150 projects every year. And this looks like this. So at the end of the day, this is now the library of different projects. Each of this is a concrete open learning source that has been developed by one to many developers and supported by experts. So we team developers and experts, and they are working for all year, for the complete year, to have a concrete result. Nobody is paying and supporting financially nothing. The only thing that we promise to them is to bring them into one place at the end of the year to present what they did. So there is a model that people will work if there is a good story, and UNESCO is a good story, and science diplomacy is a good story, and a better world is a good story, in particular in the world we are living in today, that they will be engaging and working for the concrete result that will be helping humanity. And here, yeah, I think this is a model which works, and now we are thinking about expanding this to AI, expanding this to other areas, because the model is important and it proves that it works. So I want to show you two things today. So first, there are some projects, several projects that we do on the level of open global observatories. So using open source analytics engine, different data sources that we have access to and can provide to you as well. And on the other end, the model that will actually prove us to have a stronger collaboration based on the incentive, which is a story, not incentive which would be funds and which would be money. And I will get it.
Thank you very much. This is really impressive. And we now go back to water, this central topic. So for the regional case on shared natural resources, of course, we have a case study on water, and is Jovan Despotovic who is presenting it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You can't imagine how happy I am to be with you today and this evening, because it is I don't want to count how many decades I've been in Ljubljana for many affairs, enjoy and projects. But this one is one the major stones that we actually would like to share with you, because this is a project for exactly science and diplomacy, including engineering, to be shared in this watershed or basin of the River Sava. So actually, I just would like to remind you on the faculty where I'm coming from. It's University of Belgrade Faculty of Civil Engineering, and the IRCUD UNESCO Category 2 Center, the second oldest in the UNESCO family, established by support from the area and from the Secretariat and the late 80s. Actually, the contract was from the 1987-88. In between, we had some, unfortunately, wars, sanctions, and many other things, but we survived. So you can see that the faculty was established more than 200, university was established more than 200 years ago, till UNESCO in 1988. So I would like once again to express my sincere gratitude to all of the countries in the region, particularly to Hungary, that was organized the first meeting in concern to hydrology. It was 1986. The Commission for Navigation and Floods was in Budapest, and it was the first decade in hydrology activities in UNESCO, and then the rest of the story you know. So I just would like to remind you that the Danube is about 800,000 square kilometers, and within this is the Sava of about 92,500 square kilometers, and the most water comes to the Danube watershed from the watershed of the River Sava. In the first meeting after the war in ex-Yugoslavia, held in December 2003 in Sarajevo, was in concern these water initiatives in the area. And it was similar to what had happened in 1961. And after that, on that race, there were conferences in Brčko, and several projects to follow this. And they came to the feasibility study and the project for rehabilitation and development of transport and navigation on the Sava River waterway. This is International Sava River Basin Commission, which was established in the meantime in Zagreb. So this was agreed among the countries, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Serbia. And everybody was enthusiastic about that project, but there were some not so supportive forces that destroyed this to a certain degree, and this project never came true. Never came true, and not only parts of this project, which was supposing that for the first time it would be navigable till the city of Zagreb for large Danube ships and barge and boats, and to Brežice for touristic yachts and boats. Unfortunately, and I would like all of you who are dealing with diplomacy to push this project, because it would bring a lot of advantages to people, not to science, not to scientists, not to researchers, but also to people, because this reorganization, let me say like this, of this country, of these territories, Azerbaijan and Georgia and Armenia. You know the problems of political problems and border problems and water problems extremely. And if I may put additional notion, it is also very much big problem with the Caspian Sea. Everybody knows about Aral Sea, but for Caspian Sea and for this area, it's a very big problem, because when we were in UNESCO Bureau and the Council, we visited those areas, but we tried to introduce them into the transboundary discussions, projects, etc., but we haven't managed. There are many problems, but the first one is, to my experience, that there are no people, no initiatives for the concerns of water and agriculture and people in the area, in the field. So my kind request is to think in that way, how to introduce, how to inform people in these transboundary large problems in order to cope with all of the issues that we've been witnessing today, discussion about climate change, people migration, which is a very big problem in these areas, both areas, and finally, economy and well-being. Thank you very much.
So before we move to the open question and also give follow-up to Giovanni's question, I would like to ask the help of Raymond Bonding to transition to the discussion. He's one of the 6 experts on the UNESCO Open-Ended Working Group on World Heritage, and he would like to say something about interdisciplinarity and collaboration, which we heard a lot about today. If you want. Or...
Good evening. I'm actually a sort of outsider to this conference today because I come from the heritage section of UNESCO, and my whole life has been linked to heritage. And I also come from the smallest country, which is Malta. So we have two, shall we say, problems in dealing with what you have been discussing. But all that I have heard today is extremely important to us. And my main issue has always been, and I've discussed this many times before, is that we really need to work more on an interdisciplinary basis. There is nothing which is just science or heritage or education. It is all linked. And unfortunately, there have been too much division in this sense. So we need to work more on this. I mean, the obvious subject is climate change. I mean, climate change is affecting all that we do. It's affecting very much cultural heritage and natural heritage everywhere. We speak a lot about climate change, but when we come to actual projects, we find that there are these big divisions. And my appeal is actually to see a more bigger involvement of the science, shall we say, people within this problem. I just want to mention two very quick ones. I mean, Slovenia itself, for instance, I'm told that they have much less snow and much more rain. Do we study what this effect has on heritage? I don't know. I don't know enough. But if you look at the Mediterranean, at my area, we have enormous problems with seawater levels, and this is affecting heritage in a terrible way. In my own country, a lot of the fortifications are on the sea, so with sea level is a big problem. And there are many, shall we say, technical problems or scientific problems that are not being dealt with. One of them is the obvious one, is the rise in humidity everywhere. Heritage suffers tremendously from humidity. There have been some research, there are some products out there in the market, but in reality, they are not studied enough, and they are all meant to resolve a problem in the immediate, but not in the future. So there are a lot of things that we should be discussing together and working on together to try and resolve these issues. But another issue, very quickly, sorry, 1 minute, is like Malta, to take my own country, it's a small country. We don't have much research. We do have good scientists. Many times they find it difficult to be part of the scientific world. We don't offer big financial assistance to the big projects, but we do have scientists like everywhere else, and they find it difficult to be involved. And it is, I cannot sort of advertise for what they can do, but I know that there are some good ones. Some do find good positions, but it's not enough. And smaller countries are suffering a lot from this. Also in things like, for instance, in my world, products for restoration. We depend on products that are produced in the big countries, and they are not the same. The building techniques and the building materials are not the same. So many times we are spending millions of EU money on restoration projects. It looks nice, but in a few years it starts to have problems. So my appeal here is to try and find a way to be more interdisciplinary. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
So interdisciplinarity, collaboration, transboundary, all about cooperation seems like a unifying theme. Do you have questions on these stories or other things that you would like to suggest, recommend, comment? Please.
Not a question, but rather